how come nobody at the governmental level, is saying prioritize protein? It could be distilled down to something as simple as that.
I think so, yeah. And I don't know why, but I think we both appreciate the fitness community has figured this out. Right? I mean, people that are fit, they know that we need higher protein, and that's probably, success. Would you say success leaves clues?
Yeah.
So yeah. It's I imagine, and this is not my area, it has something to do with special interests and who's pulling funding levers. I don't know that, but that's my cynical view of why that's not being promoted more.
But do you think that heuristic, do you think that something as simple as that could actually help move the needle?
Yeah, based on the randomized placebo-controlled studies. Yeah, and let me also say it's hard to when you do these protein studies, it's hard to hide the protein. But have you ever heard of the protein leverage hypothesis?
I'm familiar, but yeah,
Okay.
Unpack that for us.
So if you're familiar, I will unpack it. But it's what you just said. It's been studied. So I think it initiated in grasshoppers. A group of researchers from Australia is the first group that I came across that propagated this. And basically the protein leverage hypothesis. And again, I always put this in the context of our nutrition, our government discussions, the nutrition nerds, they're always fighting about low carb or low fat. It's just carbs versus fat argument. And we have the energy balance model of obesity, and we have the carbohydrate insulin model of obesity. Again, that's a carb versus fat argument. And way in the background, kind of ignored like a middle child maybe, is this, what about protein? Nobody talks protein. And there is a model, it's called the protein leverage hypothesis. And sorry, I talk with my hands.
We like it, it's okay.
So the protein leverage hypothesis says, when you wake up in the morning, you have a certain amount of hunger that you're going to have throughout the day. And until you get, let's say, this much protein into your body, your hunger is going to be high. But once you get your daily allotment of protein, your hunger subsides. And now you're not going to be hungry. And until you get that, because you're hungry and because in our nutrition environment, we have a lot of ready-to-eat, highly or ultra-processed foods, that's what a lot of people tend to grab because they're quick. And I'm hungry and I want to be full. But guess what ultra-processed foods don't have? Protein. So they're getting all of these calories, but they're not giving them satiety. So they'll keep eating and eating. Whereas if we did meet our protein threshold, then we would not be as hungry and we wouldn't be eating as much. And there are, I recently read, it's probably a couple years old, but a study, if we have time, I can discuss it.
Please, yeah.
It was fascinating, just a really cool study. Researchers designed diets that were low in protein, moderate protein, and then high protein. And just to make this easy, I'm just going to say low versus higher protein, because the two higher protein didn't really matter. And they had the subjects live in a research facility. So no ability to cheat. They were only allowed to eat what the researchers could observe them eating. And they had unlimited access to food, and they disguised if it was low protein or higher protein. And I can't remember how long the study was, but I believe several weeks, maybe 2 weeks. And it was enough time to legitimately measure body weight changes, et cetera. And what they found was, again, they couldn't tell the difference if they were eating low or high protein. The study had really cool pictures of the meals, and the meals looked exactly the same. And when they analyzed the results, when they were given low protein, they ate significantly more calories, which really validated the protein leverage hypothesis. That study alone would have done a lot of harm to the people who adhere to that diet, because that was a very well controlled study. So the low protein, they ate significantly more calories, they gained more weight. And then the one thing that puzzled me was there was no difference in hunger during the study. And I'm like, well, that's weird, because when you eat lower protein, this theory says you're hungry. And then I realized, well, of course there was no difference in hunger. The low protein group ate significantly more calories to make them not as hungry. So it made sense. But I remember at first I'm like, I couldn't quite figure it out. And of course, my students figured it out immediately. I'm like, why did it take me like 2 hours and I'm struggling?
That's hilarious. But I just like, we need to break this like prioritize protein adage out from, we're having these conversations on podcasts, but I feel like Americans need to know.
Yeah. Hey, I'm doing my part, right?
You are. As am I.
Yes.
But it's so simple. It's such a simple rule of thumb to, that I think could really move the needle.
Let me ask you this, because I always have this thought. To me, a higher protein diet is often a wealthy nation, like it's a luxury almost. Is there any sense that we don't want to propagate that because it's unfair to people who don't have our means? I mean, that's something that...
Very important question. Yeah. I mean, the food equity continues to be a problem. Access to, high protein, properly raised whole foods continues to be an issue. And there continues to be uneven distribution in this country and around the world. And so that is an issue. But I don't think that it's serving us to think so dichotomously, like it's either a black or white issue.
Mm-hmm.
Like
yep.
we could promote this idea that high protein diets are in many ways an antidote to our modern problems of overconsumption of ultra processed foods, while also doing the work to help foster access for lower income communities, access to foods like properly raised red meat, chicken, eggs, things like that. I mean, eggs recently were at all-time highs in terms of their cost. I know many Americans were struggling to afford eggs, and I think the prices are coming down at this point.
And that's sad because historically, I remember eggs like being cheap and such a high quality protein. So that's very frustrating.
Yeah. So how can listeners, viewers capitalize on this protein leverage hypothesis? I mean, is this why sometimes you hear that eating a really high protein breakfast is a great way to start the day because it helps to minimize your hunger over the subsequent 16 hours?
I think that makes sense for some people. So, like personally, I'm not hungry in the morning, so I tend to not eat right away because I feed my hunger drive, and I know I'm hungrier in the afternoon and evening. So I'll save those calories, so to speak, because then I'm less likely to overeat over the day. I have a pretty large appetite. So just to answer the question, I think it's just a mindset or a paradigm of I call it a protein-anchored, flexible diet approach, or just what you said, prioritizing protein. So essentially, when you're going to eat, let's try to do what we can to make sure that there's a portion of protein in the foods that we're eating.
Is there any? Do you have any concern from a muscle maintenance standpoint? So do you practice what I guess some people call intermittent fasting? I mean, are you not, how many hours after you wake up are you having your first meal of the day?
Typically, I don't eat until, well, let me give a little context. If somebody's goal is to maximize muscle mass, so if that's their primary goal, then we know, based on human-based research, the ideal is you get your total protein. Let's just say a gram per pound to make it easy. And then you want to divide that up into approximately equal protein feedings, evenly distributed throughout the day. 8 a.m., noon, 4, 8 p.m., something to that effect. So if somebody's goal is I want to build as much muscle as I can, there's the playbook. In my case, I am, by not eating until 10, 11, sometimes noon, I am knowingly leaving some muscle on the table, so to speak. But I'm more concerned, I struggle more with gaining excess body fat. So I say, okay, I don't want to lose muscle, but I would rather make it easier for me to not overeat because I struggle with overeating more than I do other things. So that's why I'm not eating till 10, 11, 12. People will say to me, oh, you're intermittent fasting. And And I say, sure, but I like to say I'm not eating breakfast, because I know that brings a lot of other, and I'm not against intermittent fasting in fact, I guess I do it, but I don't like all the labels that come with it.
Yeah.
But I have nothing against it.
All the dogma and like magical thinking.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So call it what you want. I just say I don't eat till 11 or 12 as my first meal. And it works for me, because I am not hungry in the morning.
Well, I love this idea that there's no such thing as a one size fits all approach.
Yeah, within reason. Yeah.
But with your first meal, I'm assuming you're making protein the bulk of what it is that you're building that meal around.
But really no different than my other meals. It's typically, maybe I try to get around 50 grams of protein in that meal. So yeah.
Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.